Hello, hello. I'm Robert Davidian in Los Angeles. I'm an American Armenian, and we're sitting with Gokor Եղնուկյան, who is in New York. And, we're trying to build awareness of what's going on in Armenia and Artsakh for many Armenian Americans who don't know what's going on or have not been exposed to it. So, and Gokor is fully knowledgeable about all that, and I have some questions that I can give. We can talk right away. Gokor, how are you? And what about everybody hears about the blockade. It's big international news. But is Armenia requesting help from the international community like the United Nations and others?
The short answer and the truthful answer is no. They are not. To develop on that a bit, it is a humanitarian crisis, as would be any other region of the world that is completely cut off from the outside world now in its 7th month, going into its 8th month, which means medication, food, resources, so on and so forth. We're talking about the population of 120,000, which they meaning the Turco-Russian tandem has already dwindled down by tens of thousands, forcing people just to leave. The blockade, as many of us know, started in mid-December, purportedly by a group of Azerbaijani environmentalists. But the Azerbaijani army is behind them, and behind them is the Kremlin, because they're supposed to be the peacekeepers. They're supposed to be keeping an eye on things, and at best, they're being bystanders.
Azerbaijan is, for everyone to know, a authoritarian dictatorship. And so really no environmentalists can do such a thing without the expressed consent and really design of the Azerbaijan government.
Absolutely. There is no environmental concern to speak of. And Robert, as you mentioned, it's no secret that Azerbaijan is led by Ilham Aliyev, the son of Heydar Aliyev.
Yes.
So he got power from his father. So between father and son, they've led the country for over 40 years now. That's, I think, that's the textbook definition of a dictatorship.
And of course, Azerbaijan has a history of genocidal actions towards Armenia, which will continue without protection or some sort of binding agreement, which may be the Russian agreement that was signed by all 3 countries, is not being enforced as we should expect it to be.
Russian, I'd like to take a moment here, Robert, and just because we do have some audience that is Armenian speaking, so I'd like to pose the question Armenian and give a short Armenian answer. Մեր ընկեր Ռոբերտ Դավիթյանը հիմա նոր հարցրեց բոլորից հայտնի Արցախի բլոկադայի մասին եւ ինչա կատարվում։ Եվ եթե մեր շագերտավոր իշխանությունները որևէ մի օգնություն խնդրում են միջազգային հանրությունից, ես պատասխանեցի հակիրճ ոչ, եւ ոչ թե միայն ոչ, այլ իրանք փորձում են Ռուսաստանին ավելի մանդատ տալ։ Մեր ազգույցի շարունակությունը Ռոբերտը հարցը կտա անգլերենում, ես կարճ հայերեն կթարգմանեմ եւ շատ կարճ հայերեն կպատասխանեմ եւ ավելի ծավալուն անգլերեն կպատասխանեմ, որ բոլոր մեր հանդիսացողներին մատչելի լինի։ So yes, so not only they're not seeking international help, when given the opportunity to do so, they're asking that the Russian so-called peacekeepers, which are not peacekeepers, they're simply occupants. There's nothing peaceful about what Russia does. And infamously, we're thankful for that because of the Ukrainian invasion. I think what most of the world didn't know, or part of the world that didn't know, that Russia is just a terrorist and occupant state and they're an empire, nothing more, nothing less. The invasion of Ukraine, I think, fortified it worldwide. So the Russian peacekeepers are just simply occupants. They are allowing for this to happen. Russia and Turkey, though they may appear at face value to be enemies, in reality, especially when it comes to Armenian sovereignty, they are brothers in arms. And this has been going on for decades, if not centuries.
The National Democratic Alliance, BEVER, has one of the leaders of the organization, Sefilyan, who lives in Armenia, was recently just called in by the Pashinyan government, I should say, to be questioned about an investigation about him. What can you say about that?
I don't know much of the details because it is an ongoing investigation, but it's just another form of political persecution. He was called in supposedly as a witness on a corruption case, but while he was called in, he was told that he may also be a suspect. So it's a very textbook KGB manner of political persecution.
Right.
And now, especially now that Pashinyan has to put up the appearances of being democratic, they can't no longer gather the people in the middle of the night. So they have to do this in a roundabout way of saying, well, you're a witness, but you're also a suspect. We have some information that we can't divulge to you, and so on and so forth. And
this is exactly what the previous presidents of Armenia did.
Now they're forced to do it in a more soft-handed manner, and it's not just Sefilyan, unfortunately. It's also stretched out to other council members of the National Democratic Alliance, as well as supporters of the National Democratic Alliance. All types of just absolutely ridiculous that a first grader can see through accusations. The accusations are so bad that they can't even make them stick. But the idea behind political persecution isn't necessarily, this isn't the prehistoric times where you just throw somebody in a dungeon, or even just decades ago when you just lock them up and throw away the key. Now it's just to give them a hard time, make them run back and forth to court, make them get attorneys, take away their resources where they should be spending on doing the job that they're meant to do. So it seems like that's the intention. Hopefully it won't grow much more than that. And the reason Pashinyan is doing that is because he's realizing, just as Sergic realized in 2018, that his days are numbered and he has to do everything in his power to control it. And for somebody like Nikol, even more so than his horrific predecessors of Levon, Robert, and Sergic, his chair means the world to him. He would give up anything for his chair. Probably family members. He would cheat, lie, steal, kill, whatever it takes, as long as he can hold on to that power. He's proving that. Most recently, he went to Turkey to congratulate Erdogan on his re-election, and we saw all the pictures of him bowing way more than 90 degrees and smiling and laughing it up with Aliyev and his wife and Erdogan, as if he's at a happy hour.
Let's remind everyone that
Aliyev, I'm sorry, I jumped to.
Let's remind everyone that Aliyev, and with the backing of Turkey, killed 5,000 or more Armenian boys in the latest war against Artsakh and Armenia. So it makes me just so sad and horrified to bow and laugh it up with this guy.
Խոսքը գնաց Փաշինյանի այցը Էրդողանին շնորհավորելու եւ ինձ թվում է որ շատ պետք չի հայրեն այդ դրամասից ավելեն որ ինչ ահավոր տեսարան էր մեր բոլորիս համար այն մարդու հետ որ ծիծաղում շփվում է որ մեր երիտասարդների 5000-ից եւ էլի շատ ավելի որ սպանելը իհարկե իր աջակցությամբ նկատի ունեմ Փաշինյանի աջակցությամբ եւ բոլոր բազմաթիվ աղետները որ եղավ պատերազմից հետո եւ ինքը առանց որևէ մի խղճի զգացությամբ գնաց եւ շփվեց Ալիևի հետ
He should, and I am bowing to those 5,000 boys and their family right now.
Yeah. There was even talks of destroying Yerablur, where our soldiers are buried. I mean, it's gotten just from bad to worse on a daily basis.
I'm sorry, who would destroy? What do you mean?
There's been talks of course, they do it in a subversive way of Yerablur, which is where all national heroes are buried, everybody from Monte Melkonian to Aray Khandoyan, and of course the thousands of men that we lost in the 2020 war. Because, well, I won't even get to that because it's nonsense. But it's constantly, every single day, to try to take away our dignity, to try to make us callous to things like murder and loss of statehood and the most horrific things that there can be. There's a constant subliminal and often direct effort for a leader of a nation to go congratulate your current enemy. This isn't this isn't France meeting Germany after their war from hundreds of years ago and where everything is okay now. This is happening right now. We still have POWs. We still have 120,000 of our brothers and sisters in a blockade. And our supposed leader is mingling with them on the best of terms. There's, Nicola has been called a treason, has been called many things. I don't even call him a traitor anymore, because a traitor implies that at some point he or she was on your side. He is just an outright enemy of the people. Nicol is an enemy. He's not a traitor. He's not an idiot. He's not confused. He's not mentally ill. And if he is, it's irrelevant. The fact is, his actions are hurting our statehood and our population on a daily basis. And the sooner we are rid of him, and by rid of him, I'll quote Malcolm X, by any means necessary, the sooner we can start to rebuild our actual statehood, which is on my shirt here. It says, Voch mitis, not 1 inch. Because for the past 30 years, the theory has been that, well, if we give up this land, we'll have peace. If we give up the 7 regions surrounding Artsakh, we'll have peace. If we give up Artsakh, if we give up the enclaves, soon they're going to say, well, if we give up Abovian Street, we can hold on to Sayat Nova Street. There's no such thing. You don't give up anything. I don't know to say it proudly or shamefully. We should see Ukraine as an example that is going by the Voch mitis theories, the not 1 inch. They're not willing to give up Kherson or Donetsk or Crimea, not a river, not a dam, not anything.
So the National Democratic Alliance, what can people do what can people do about the whole situation that we've been talking about?
The thing, yeah, of course, we can sit here and complain. Հարցը հետևյալն էր. Հիմա ինչ կարող ենք անել։ Պատասխանը հայրեն ասեմ, նախ իհարկե կարող ենք բողոքել, շատերս գիտենք ինչ աղետային վիճակը, բոլոր դաժանությունները, որ այս մեր չիշխանությունը կատարում է, բայց ինչ կարելի է անել։ Հումանիտար մարդասիրական հարցը պետք է անպայման բարձրաձայնել, որ այո, մենք հիմա ապրում ենք հումանիտար աղետի մեջ։ Եվ ես կասեի ոչ միայն Արցախի 120,000-ը, որի միջալոց Արցախը Հայաստանի մի մաս է, էդի չմոռանանք, Հայաստանի մի մաս է, անկախ պետություն չի, ինքը ուղղակի մարզ է, որ Ստալինի ժամանակ մեզնից պոկել են։ Մենք պետք է այդ բանը անպայման եւ անընդհատ բարձրաձայնենք տարբեր ձևերով, ցույցերով, նամակներով, ամերիկաբնակ հայերը, մեր կոնգրեսմեններին, մեր սենատորներին, մարդասիրական կազմակերպություններին, Տալինի Amnesty կամ Կարմիր խաչ, որում է որ այդտեղ տեղի է ունենում ցեղասպանության շարունակությունը, սա նոր ցեղասպանություն չի, սա մի բան է, որ 100 տարի առաջ եթե ոչ ավել ծրագրված է եւ հիմա էլ շարունակում է եւ շուտով կհասնի Երևանի դռներում։ Երկրորդ բանը, որ պետք է անենք, մենք պետք է դեր կանգնենք ինչ որ մեր իրավունքն է։ Մեր իրավունքը Վիլսոնյան Հայաստանն է։ Դա մեր կադաստրն է, ինչպես որ Նիկոլը սիրում է ասել։ Մենք այդ դրա անգլերեն ասում են title-ը։ Մենք այդ դրա title-ը ունենք։ Մենք քիչ պետություններից ենք, որ ունենք։ Ի տարբերություն ինչ որ Նիկոլը ասում է, որ մենք ոչ կադաստր ունենք, նույնիսկ իրավունք էլ չունենք այս հողի վրա ապրել, յուրաքանչյուր մեկը կարող է ասի մենք գնանք։ Մենք ունենք այդ բանը, բայց մենք պետք է տեր կանգնենք։ Եթե մեկը գա ձեր տունը ներխուժի եւ դու ասես որ ես ոչ մի բան չունեմ, դու հանձնվում ես ձերքերը վերև, ինչպես որ Նիկոլը սիրում էր անել, եւ հանձնվում ես։ Բայց եթե դու ասում ես ոչ, ես ունեմ կադաստրի թուղթը եւ դիմում ես դատարանին կամ որը մի իրավապահարներին եւ դու տեր ես կանգնում այդ տանը։ Ուրիշ մի օրինակ կարող եմ ասել, եթե դու դատարանի մեջ ես եւ ասենք թե քո երեխու համար դատական որոշում եկա, բայց եթե դու հրաժարվում ես այդ քո իրավունքից որպես հայր կամ մայր, ոչ դատարանը, ոչ էլ քո պաշտպանը կարող է որևէ մի բան անի։ Դու պետք է տեր կանգնես քո իրավունքին, թե չէ այնտեղ կողքից քեզ մեկը չի օգնի։ Եվ սա նաև գնում է այն հարցում, որ ինչու արևմուտքը մեզ չի օգնում։ Արևմուտքը մեզ չի օգնում, որովհետև մենք չենք ուզում այդ օգնությունը։ Մենք ասում ենք, որ մերը 29000 է, այն 86000 է, ներառյալ Արցախը։ Ուրեմն դրանից հետո ոչ Ֆրանսիան, ոչ Ամերիկան, ոչ Մովսեսը, ոչ էլ Հիսուսը կարող է Նիկոլին ասի, որ այդ տղա տեր կանգնի ես սրան։ Ասում է չես ուզում, շատ բարի չես ուզում։ Բայց եթե դու տեր կանգնես, ասես հերս այ իմ թուղթը, հերս այ իմ իրավունքը, հերս այ իմ տարածքը, այն ժամանակ ոչ թե իրանք կուզենան անել, բայց դու կարող ես իրանց պարտադրել, նույնիսկ թշնամի բերություններին կարող ես պարտադրել, որովհետև օրենքի դիմաց ոչ մի խաղ չկա, բայց այդ օրենքին պետքա տեր կանգնվի։ I went on longer in Armenian than I thought. I was basically saying what the number one thing that we should do is address the humanitarian crisis, because this is a continuation of the genocide. It's not a new genocide, it's a continuation. And we have to bring that to light at every opportunity, whether it's through protests or here in the US, whether it's to letters to our congressmen and senators saying that there is an ongoing genocidal attempt right now, and forgetting about everything else, whether the November night statement or everything else that's happened in the past. It's a direct humanitarian crisis right now that has to be addressed. And they can do things, whether it's Red Cross or Amnesty International or Congress over here or UN peacekeepers to go over there, and that can be done in a very simple way. UN peacekeepers can be given the mandate. Of course, if our government isn't asking for it, the people of Armenia have to ask for it. Because when the government's voice is not heard, the people's voice is heard. But in order for the people's voice to be heard, the people have to come out en masse and say that we demand that peacekeepers come. And the way that it happens, which isn't what the Russian peacekeepers are doing, they say you have 24 hours or 2 hours or 48 hours, whatever the timeline. You open up this road or we use force. And that has been done many times, and it can simply be done. Nikol is not doing that. So we need tens of thousands of Armenians to sign petitions or go out in the street and say, we demand international peacekeepers to intervene. We demand international armies to intervene, anybody to intervene, to open up this damn road, to get these 120,000 people their God-given rights of medicine and food and so forth. That is the number one issue at hand. The number two issue at hand is that we as Armenians need to know what our rights are. We have a title to our land, to this land, which is the Wilsonian Arbitral Award. The Wilsonian Arbitral Award, unlike many other agreements or treaties, is an irrevocable award, meaning that it cannot be overturned by any court, by any other treaty. In addition to that, it is not subject to any kind of expiration, which means that from the day it was signed until this moment, as we speak now, it is in full effect.
What is the award? Who's?
It was Woodrow Wilson, by the Great Seal of the President of the United States. He had decided what the borders of Armenia would be. And
this is after World War One.
After World War One, and ironically, the Wilsonian. It wasn't just about Armenia. It was when the Ottoman Empire dissolved, everything, and that's how it was through that Iraq and Syria and Jordan and all the countries that we saw come out. The only ones that didn't get a nation was Kurdistan and Armenia. And of course, at this point, we're considered Armenia because the Bolshevik and Turk, because the Lenin Ataturk pact went over it illegally. Two illegitimate governments decided the fate of a legitimate government. The two illegitimate governments being the Republic of Turkey, which was not established at that time, and Soviet Union, which was not established at that time. But the Republic of Armenia was established. But we got the rug pulled from under our feet, and we've been cursed with that ever since, because none of our leaders, none of our treasonous enemy leaders, starting from Levon, going through Robert, to Serge, to Nicole, have done this, because they have all, in one form or another, worked for the Kremlin. And we have to realize that we can only make this an actuality if we stand up and we say what is ours. The example I gave in Armenian is that if someone marches into your home and says, "This is my home now," and overpowers you, whether it be physically or mentally or any other way, and you just simply walk away, they now have your home. Whereas if you present the title to them, and then to the courts, and then to the authorities, it might take some time, but it would be a matter of time before it is given that it is yours. The other example I gave is in a child custody case. If either parent doesn't want to fight for his right, his parental right, there is nothing that the courts or the attorneys can do if you are not willing to fight for it. So similar to that, if Nicol is the father of our nation, but he is not fighting for his child Armenian statehood, then there is nothing The Hague or the US or France or Belgium or anyone can do. Nicol is saying, it's not mine. I'm recognizing Azerbaijan's sovereign 86,000 kilometers. So who is Biden or Macron or the EU to say, no, Nicol, this is yours? And this is a huge misnomer, because we have many Russophiles that are saying, what's the West doing? The West can't do anything. There's two ways that the West can do something. One is if the government demands. Two is if the people demand. Two examples I can give of recent times is with the example of Ukraine. Zelensky went knocking on doors, said, give me money, give me guns. He demanded it, and they gave it to him. He didn't just say, oh, well, we lost Crimea, I guess Crimea is Russian now. He demanded. The other example, and there's dozens of examples, is the example of South Africa, where there was apartheid. And obviously, it was a government-sanctioned apartheid, so the government did not want to defeat itself. But the people rose up in the late 20th century, and apartheid was crushed. So there are two ways to get things done. You either have a government that has its people's interests in mind, or you have a mass of people that have their own interests in mind. It's obvious to us that we do not have the former, so we have to get the latter, which is to get people in the streets and make sure that we stand by what was our right, what is our rights, excuse me.
Good, very good. Good place to leave it too. Coco, thank you very much. You know, this is important just to give the facts, just to build awareness, first of all, before we get 10,000 people in the street. And so it's one person at a time. You can, if you're watching, you can just be aware of this, share it, and also look at meetings that are happening. What website can you recommend, Coco?
Well, I mean, they can go on Facebook, the National Democratic Alliance, or in Armenian, Ազգային-Ժողովրդավարական Բևեռին. There's also their website, which is ajbever.com. It's in English, Armenian, and Russian. And there's a bunch of text there to follow. I'd also like to take this opportunity, since our time is running up, starting tonight in Los Angeles, in front of the Glendale City Hall, a group of Armenians are starting at a sit-in. And the sit-in, the main purpose of the sit-in is telling Biden, or asking Biden, I should say, honor your most recent declaration of April 24th to prevent further genocide. That will be starting, if I'm not mistaken, tonight at about 11 p.m. For the unforeseeable future. There will be somebody there round the clock, and that is in front of Glendale City Hall. So for my friends out in LA, join them, support them, bring them a cup of coffee. Anything would be helpful, and hopefully this will snowball into something else, into a bigger event in LA. We know that LA has the largest Armenian community outside Armenia, at this point, maybe even inclusive of Armenia, and maybe into other cities. And I'll say in Armenian also, Artից օգտվելով այս գիշեր նստածույց պիտի սկսի Գլենդելի քաղաքապետարանի առաջ, եթե չեմ սխալվում, հենց այս գիշեր Կալիֆոռնիայի ժամով ժամը 11-ին, եւ հիմնական կարգախոսը պիտի լինի, որ Բայդենի ապրիլ 24-ի իր խոսքերը տեր կանգնեն եւ թույլ չտան այս ցեղասպանության շարունակությունը։ Նկատի ունենք կոնկրետ հումանիտար խնդիրը Արցախի բլոկադայի վերաբերյալ։ Խնդրեմ իրանց աջակցեք, միացեք, եթե կարող եք ուղղակի անցեք, բարևեք, քաջալերեք, մի բաժակ սուրճ բերեք, այնտեղ իրանք պիտի նստած լինեն, անժամկետ հիմա այս բայով անժամկետ է, չգիտենք ինչքան երկար, բայց նպատակը որ սա ալիք ստեղծի, որ համ Լոս Անջելեսի հայությունը ոտքի կանգնի եւ իհարկե աշխարհասփյուր տարբեր տեղերում ինչ որ ընդեր կարող են անել, նորից այս գիշեր Գլենդելի քաղաքապետարանից նստածույց պահանջելով որ կանխել այս հումանիտար կրիզիս, այլ հումանիտար կրիզիս չեմ ասել, այլ մեր ցեղասպանության շարունակությունը.
That's in front of the Glendale City Hall. At 11 p.m. tonight.
At 11 p.m. tonight.
Okay. Thank you very much, Coco, and we'll be back again.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, we'll try to make it more frequent.
Yes.
Thank you.